All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the fourth edition of the semester of Real Graps here on WIUR, Iona University Radio. I am your host, Joe Gierer, and it has been quite an active week in the world of WWE and professional wrestling in general, and all things WWE. First of all, I want to open the show by acknowledging that WWE is going through some roster cuts again, and this is always like a tough thing that goes on in the business. It's something you really don't like to see, but I guess it does have to happen, budget cuts, all that kind of stuff. But they end up cutting some really good talent. And like there was a few notable names that got cut. You have people from Evolve, NXT, everybody getting cut all over the place. They even cut guys from LFG, uh, such as I think Summer Sorrell and BJ Ray were two of the guys that got cut, guys or girls. The biggest one, in my opinion, that I saw that really threw me off was Wes Lee, because Wes Lee is obviously like a staple on the NXT brand. He's one of the greatest North American champions of all time, if not the greatest. And he's like a very extremely talented in-ring performer. He's one of the best in the company and the brand, especially. And his heel run, it's just the heel run when they turned him against the Rascals. It seemingly just shot everything downhill. And it sucks to see, but I'm wishing Wes Lee comes back. I'm hoping at some point, I hope maybe TNA picks him up. I don't know what's going to go on with him, but just have him be what he's good at. Have him be face. That was his best form. That was his best version. The heel run got him cut. So I think that we have to just let Wes Lee come back and be himself, because when he was himself, he was a top player on the NXT brand. Now, speaking of NXT, NXT hosted Showdown last week, which, if you are unfamiliar or did not watch the show last week, it's essentially brand wars or company wars even. It's NXT versus TNA. That was the basis of the show. And everything that went on throughout the show was TNA versus NXT. They had two Survivor Series styled matches, one for the females and one for the males. They had a couple of title matches, a couple of matches, whatever it may be, set up a few matches. And I thought the event was really good overall. I really enjoyed it, watching it. And I'd be remiss to not start off this way, but how in the hell last week did I forget? I came out a little groggy. I was a little bit off. I would say I was a little bit off last week. Just wasn't feeling like myself. I was a bit tired. I was a bit overloaded with work. And somehow, when I was reviewing last week's NXT leading into Showdown, I entirely forgot to even note or mention that there was some history going on. There was a shot at history. History ended up getting achieved last night on NXT. Last week. The Hardy Boys, two of the biggest stars in the history of professional wrestling, especially Jeff, and arguably the greatest tag team of all time, the TNA World Tag Team Champions, were coming to NXT for the first time since Roadblock at the event I was at back in March. And they'd be competing in a title for title against Dark State, trying to capture the WWE NXT Tag Team Championships for the first time in their career. And I somehow entirely forgot that that match was happening. At least at the time of the show. I realized after, but it is extremely, we'll say it's pretty bad on the part of somebody who is creating content and talking about professional wrestling to forget that the Hardys were returning to WWE when they're literally, arguably, the greatest tag team of all time in professional wrestling. So that one's on me. But history was shot at and history was achieved, because the Hardy Boys led off the show by defeating Dark State in their title for title affair and becoming the new NXT Tag Team Champions. And they also retained their TNA Tag Team Champions in the process. So the Hardy Boys have finally captured the one tag team title that's eluded them their entire careers. I believe they captured other ones in elsewhere promotions right after, but they are the first TNA wrestlers since the partnership to happen that have claimed NXT Gold. It's been a few times where they've had shots at it, countless times where they've had shots at it, but they've never actually won the match. Maybe there was a few good candidates. I know a lot of people were on the Joe Hendry for NXT champion train back when he faced Ethan Page for it, but ultimately that didn't happen. And of course, it is the Hardy Boys, who are some of the greatest WWE talent ever, to come in and be the first TNA wrestlers since the partnership to get NXT championships. It's just fitting, and it's kind of along this mold of WWE has brought in and used some good TNA talent since the partnership has began, they've converted some over like Jordan Grace and signed her to a full-time deal and had her on NXT, but they've never really given them that shot to defeat their talent on their show and make them look real strong. They never claimed the title, even though, like I said, there was a few acceptable instances where that could have been the case. But you've seen plenty of NXT talent like JC Jane with the X Division Championship, and you've seen Trick Williams most recently with the TNA Championship. These guys have gone over there and won their titles, but nothing has ever returned in favor of TNA when it comes to NXT championships. That finally happened. The Hardy Boys are probably a great pick to do so. And if that means the Hardy Boys are going to be appearing more on WWE programming going forward, I am fully on board because as a child, I didn't see enough of the Hardys. And as an adult, I'm finally seeing some Hardys. So it's very nice to see them back in WWE in some form or capacity. New WWE Tag Team Champions, NXT Tag Team Champions, the Hardys. We'll see where that goes moving forward. And I guess at the same time, we'll see what's going on with Dark State moving forward because I believe they interfered. I don't have TNA Plus or anything. I can't watch the events, but TNA Bound for Glory happened over the weekend. And if my mind suits me right, I believe that Dark State interfered in the Leon Slater versus Javon Evans X Division Championship match. I think that's right. So whatever the direction is there, if they're going to have more tag team work for Leon Slater and Javon Evans, sign me up because when they tagged on NXT, I believe last week, we said on this show, it was phenomenal. They both worked so well together, and their match, from what I've seen of it, looked like it was match of the night, best match of the card, and it's two 21-year-old kids. And then you got me sitting here at the microphone at school talking to you about the work that they're doing. So I don't know what went wrong with me, but nevertheless, the Women's Survivor Series style match followed up the tag title match on NXT Showdown. And this match had me a little bit worried, I'm not going to lie, because as you'd kind of expect, Team NXT defeated Team TNA. They won by a total of four eliminations against two. There was a couple of key moments in the match, one of which Jordan Grace missed a pinfall that Kalani Jordan had on JC Jane. And going into the match as the special guest referee, Jordan Grace, people were worried within the match that she was going to be partial or like she was going to be favoriting one brand or another because she was kind of in the middle, spent much time with TNA. And then she came over to NXT and has been NXT for the past year or so, almost a year maybe. She debuted officially with WWE as a member of WWE back in January. But they had that tension go on where she missed a pinfall. She was distracted outside the ring. Kalani Jordan kind of thought she was being partial towards NXT. That whole thing got explored within the match. There was also a moment where Lola Vice was arguing with and got sent into JC Jane right before she was eliminated in the match, which obviously is a continuation. These teams were jumbled together on both sides. You saw tension because the whole point of the match is for TNA and NXT to take their best talent and put them into this big spotlight, even if they don't get along with one another. So that was kind of a common theme throughout the entire matchup, although less on the TNA women's side, which is funny because the only team that really didn't have any tension was the one that ended up losing. So clearly teamwork is not valued in the world of Survivor Series styles matches in WWE, but nonetheless, the order of the eliminations. Jada Parker went out first. TNA picked up first blood. She got rolled up by Mara Sade, who was formerly Jakara Jackson of the Ep.4. And while she was celebrating, she got caught and eliminated because Saruka came in, hit a soul snatcher, that beautiful finisher, and eliminated her. Following that was Cassie Lee of TNA, got knocked out by Lola Vice with the back fist. And then Jessie McKay, who's the other half of the Inspiration, I believe they were called, and the TNA Women's Tag Team Champions, got eliminated also by Lola Vice. So they made Lola Vice look real strong in this match. One with a back fist, the second one with a sleeper or rear naked choke. If you're a WWE or a mixed martial arts fan, I have a show about mixed martial arts coming up at 5 p.m. Tune in. But whether you're a fan of that, whatever you want to call it, sleeper, rear naked choke, she locked one in, tapped out Jessie McKay, and all of a sudden it was all down to Kalani Jordan, the new TNA Knockouts world champion, to take on a 3v1 against Lola Vice, Saruka, and JC Jane. She ended up getting an elimination. She took advantage of some arguing going on, like I mentioned, between Lola Vice and JC Jane, knocked JC Jane off, and she ended up hitting like an angle slam, which looked good on Lola Vice and eliminating her with a 3 count. And then it came down to a 1v2, Kalani Jordan versus Sol Ruka and JC Jane. And that is unfortunately where TNA met their demise. Kalani Jordan was eliminated, got hit with Sol Ruka's Soul Snatcher, and then JC Jane tagged herself in and stole the pinfall, which this week in WWE, or at least last week, I think was kind of it was pretty common because the Monday Night Raw, if I remember correctly, that main event ended with LA Knight tagging and then stealing a pin from CM Punk. So, common themes going on across all shows, I guess. But JC Jane stole a pin, takes credit for it, and Team NXT was up 1-0 in Survivor Series styles matches. And the way that it was orchestrated, I was a little bit worried on the TNA side, considering if you break down these eliminations, Jada Parker of NXT was eliminated, but she was eliminated by Mara Sade, who, as I mentioned, was formerly Jakara Jackson on WWE NXT. Then TNA met a string of eliminations, and their only other elimination in the match was Kalani Jordan, who is not only not a TNA talent, but she's not only formerly a WWE talent, she is still a roster WWE talent and appears on NXT weekly. So you had a former NXT wrestler get an elimination. Then they wiped out TNA's side right away. And the only other elimination came from a contracted NXT talent. So it made me a little worried for what the men's match was going to look like and how this partnership, as I've alluded to before, has been pretty one-sided in favor of WWE and NXT. A lot of people have figured that WWE is going to buy TNA at some point through this partnership. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it seemed like it was going to be another one of them nights where NXT just completely washed TNA and found everything in their favor. Thankfully, and I say thankfully, that turned out not to be the case. I have in here woo woo woo. Obviously, if you were an old wrestling fan, you know that catchphrase. That's Zack Ryder, aka Matt Cardona, as he now goes by. He's made a few appearances on NXT in the previous few weeks. He interfered with a Josh Briggs match against Miles Bourne to get on Team NXT. And in a backstage segment with Ava where Josh Briggs barged in and didn't really notice him hiding behind a door. Cardona wanted a match. He got his match. Josh Briggs versus Matt Cardona is going to happen officially on NXT next week. So Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder, whatever you still refer to him as, I'd call this a big return because it's something that people have seen coming for a long time. And finally, it is happening. Matt Cardona is returning to the ring in WWE, which felt like it was never going to happen. And then it felt like it was really going to happen. And then he said that they weren't reaching out to him. So it's really not going to happen, but he's always ready. And now it's finally going to happen. And that takes place tonight on NXT on the CW network, which I don't know if I'll be watching live or not. But nonetheless, I do this show. I always watch the show. So by next week, I will have watched the show to see everything that happens. Immediately following that, we had an NXT North American Championship match. That was Ethan Page, the reigning defending champ, against TNA's Mustafa Ali, who was previously, as we explored last week, promised a title match, earned a title match 2 years ago at No Mercy, and then got fired from the company and never claimed his shot, never got what he deserved. With this new partnership, he was able to come back to NXT and finally capitalize on the one thing that he earned and was never given, which is that North American title shot. And unfortunately for him, his foot got caught in a microphone wire. I believe that it was Booker T's headset that he got caught up in. Ethan Page was able to take advantage and retain the NXT North American Championship to keep his wonderful reign going. I'm actually a very big fan of Ethan Page. I always like the work that he's done since he came to NXT. I think I've said it multiple times on this show, but I'm just an Ethan Page fan. I think he does really good work. He's very reliable. He puts on good matches, and he's had himself a very nice run with the North American Championship since dethroning Ricky Saints, who's now the NXT champion, and dethroned Obafemi. So Ricky Saints on to bigger and better things. Ethan Page maintaining a very, very fun North American title reign, and still the greatest North American alive. I'm sure we'll hear that tonight. No, maybe we might not. I don't think Ethan Page might not cut a promo tonight because, as we'll get to in a minute, certain AAA talent is coming over to NXT, having himself a match tonight, and I'm sure we're going to see Ethan Page during that match. If not after, he'll probably take someone out, and then we'll get another North American title defense set up immediately after. Transitioning into that, Lexis King. Lexis King is quite possibly the dumbest persona on NXT. He is dumb as rocks. He thinks everybody is trying to belittle someone in some way because he's a cheater himself. So he thinks that everybody's trying to cheat in some way, trying to deceive, trying to fool. And I wrote in here, Lexis King is more like Lexis Jester because of the stuff he says. It's just so foolish and dumb that you kind of just like, it's like comedic character, but also you're like, come on, dude. Like, it's not even believable how stupid this character is. He thought that El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., who is a champion in AAA, the AAA talent that I just previously referred to, he's got a little thing going on with Ethan Page. And Lexis King came in thinking he was Tavion Heights and started bashing him. And then obviously Tavion Heights walks in right after. So he's like, how did you do that? So anyways, they're both going to face off on NXT tonight. You're getting Lexis King against El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. There is 100%, maybe 110% belief in my mind that El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. is going to pick up a good win and earn himself a North American Championship match immediately following it against Ethan Page. Now, for people who know her and for people who maybe watched AEW, I wasn't even one of those people, but I knew the potential, the skill, the promise. Blake Monroe, formerly known as Mariah May in AEW, is finally seemingly in a title picture on NXT. She debuted a long time ago. Everybody kind of thought that JC Jane was initially going to be a transitional champion. She was going to lose her belt very quickly to Blake Monroe, who's going to take over as NXT Women's Champion. And that wasn't quite the case. She went into a feud with Jordynne Grace that went on for a long time. She hasn't even really sniffed a title shot since she came over to NXT, which is kind of crazy considering she was AEW World Champion for a long time before her departure there. But praise everything. She's finally in a title picture in a backstage segment. She, while obviously trying to drive a wedge still between Zarya and Sol Ruca, they've had ongoing issues on NXT. Maybe not on other shows because they've appeared on SmackDown, but on NXT at least, they've had themselves a little bit of a rough go at things. They're not really on the same page, and Blake Monroe tried to exploit that. But at the same time, she made it very clear that she wants Sol Ruca's North American Championship. And as I said, regardless of if it's the North American Championship, because it's a prestigious title nonetheless, Sol Ruca has done a good job of keeping that title extremely relevant and extremely important on the show. But Blake Monroe, whether it's the North American Championship or the NXT Women's Championship, she had to at some point enter a title picture, and it seemingly is happening now. And I'm very happy about it because the work she did in AEW with the World Championship. See, I'm not an AEW watcher. That's obvious. I've said that plenty of times on this show. But the fact that I know so well who Mariah May was with AEW shows that she's able to have that great work and put up great matches and carry a world title and a major title very well. And the fact she's finally getting that shot on NXT, it's long overdue, even though she only debuted a couple of months ago. But I'm very happy about it. I'm a big Blake Monroe guy, and I think she's going to have a good feud with Sol Ruca if that's what it turns into. Finally, for NXT last week, the men's Survivor Series style main event. As I alluded to before, I thought this was going to be an NXT wash. They were going to squash TNA, defend the brand. It was going to make TNA look real weak and real poor. And clearly that the partnership has been and will remain one-sided. But that actually wasn't the case. And the fact that it happened in the men's match caught me way more off guard than if it would have happened in the women's match for some reason. I guess it's because the women have always held the moniker like best women's division in the world, best women's division in all of wrestling, NXT. So having them lose to the TNA women's division wouldn't have looked too good. But Team TNA actually defeated Team NXT in the Survivor Series style main event on NXT Showdown. They beat them by the same score that the NXT women beat the TNA women. That's 4 eliminations against 2. And as to how it all happened, first guy out was Miles Bourne. He kind of got eliminated fairly quickly. It was by Frankie Kazarian, who hit him with some funky cutter over the apron. I'm not all too familiar with the work of Frankie Kazarian, but it was a funky move. He got the elimination. And right away, NXT was down a man, and it was looking grim. And then Javon Evans went on a run of his own, and immediately after his run, got caught in a roll-up off of a springboard by Leon Slater, his opponent for the coming Bound for Glory event, rolled up and eliminated. So off the bat, Miles Bourne, Javon Evans, the two non-world champions of the team, were eliminated. And NXT was down 4 men against 2 men. And then, when the times got tough, and Mike Santana was in that ring with their upcoming TNA World Championship main event for Bound of Glory, Trick Williams, Trick NA, the TNA World Champion, walked out on his team, and he walked out on his brand. He literally just got off the apron and just walked away. He just waltzed out on the main event, and you didn't see him the rest of the show. And I think it was partially him playing into the fear of facing Mike Santana, which he eventually did at Bound for Glory. And I guess I'd be remiss not to mention, Trick Williams is no longer your TNA World Champion. For what many considered to be a reign of terror on TNA, Trick Williams lost that championship. It is time for a new era. It's time for the belt to go back to TNA. Mike Santana, New York's very own Mike Santana, is the new TNA World Champion, which I've seen many people say is long overdue. And I've seen him on NXT. Like I said, I think his work has been good. He seems like a guy who's able to carry that belt and have a good run with it. So Mike Santana is the very new TNA World Champion after defeating Trick Williams at Bound for Glory. But getting back to NXT, Trick Williams just walked out of the main event, and that left Ricky Saints in a Dolph Ziggler-like predicament where he was 1 against 4 against the entire Team TNA. Clearly not a very good choice of partners on the part of the new NXT champion, Ricky Saints. However, went on a slight little run of his own. Frankie Kazarian, he eliminated because he reversed a move into a pin, and that got out Frankie Kazarian. And then shortly after, he ended up inside cradling Leon Slater when he went for his absurd 450 swanton that he does. I don't even know how someone thought of putting those two moves together, but he got rolled up after the knees went up. Ricky Saints immediately eliminated 2, and it looked like he was going to have that big run. We were like, oh no, it's going to happen, isn't it? He's going to beat the entire team on his own, make Ricky Saints look real strong, make TNA look kind of very weak in the same sense. But that's not what happened, because the last and final elimination of the match was Ricky Saints, the NXT champion. He got hit by a pop-up powerbomb by Moose into a spin-the-block discus clothesline by Mike Santana. Mike Santana picked up the big pin, picked up the big win ahead of Bound for Glory. Clearly, he was the head of TNA. He was their guy, and that was solidified over the weekend when he won the TNA World Championship against Trick Williams. So good match overall, good event overall, and the event actually wrapped up by letting us know that a new women's NXT title challenger for Halloween Havoc was to emerge next week, where Ava and Santino had a conversation backstage. They set up a women's battle royal, including the TNA Knockouts division. And the winner of that will be the number 1 contender to JC Jane's NXT Women's Championship at the upcoming Halloween Havoc show later this month. So NXT, successful, good show overall. Now, moving to main roster shenanigans, SmackDown, ahead of Crown Jewel, which happened on Saturday. I think this week was good for WWE. A lot of people were fans of this SmackDown episode. A lot of the discourse online was that it was actually the best SmackDown episode in what people called years. And I don't know if I can necessarily disagree with them, because I enjoyed everything from top to bottom of this SmackDown. It opened with Seth Rollins and the Vision. He came out, gave some final words. He delivered his final message to Cody. He's the guy. He's going to beat Cody. It eats away at him. This is for the future of the industry. I'm going to beat you. The crowd had some choice words for Seth Rollins that I don't believe I'm able to say on this show on WIUR radio. So I'm going to refrain from doing so. But if you watch the product, you know the chant that I'm talking about. They chanted it at him during SmackDown. They chanted during Crown Jewel. And then they chanted during Monday Night Raw, because all 3 were in Perth. So rough weekend, good weekend, rough weekend. Actually, it's turned out to be a very rough weekend for Seth Rollins, but we'll get into that very soon. It seems a new challenger is emerging for the WWE Championship because Cody Rhodes ran into Jacob Fatu. Hold on. My brain is scrambled. I'm sorry. SmackDown was Cody delivering final words to Seth, and the crowd was chanting it about Seth, and Cody had some fun, gave the mic to Wade. I don't know why I completely blanked. I think I'm just so used to Seth Rollins cutting that exact same promo that my mind went blank. But yeah, it was Cody delivering words to Seth about how he's going to beat him, and the score is 3-0. It's going to be 4-0, that whole thing. But Cody went backstage after. He ran into Jacob Fatu, who let it be known that he wants a shot at the WWE Championship, and he's working his way towards that. However, there was a blindside attack. What else is new with Drew McIntyre? He attacked Jacob Fatu, and that brawl between them continued later into the show after Aldis announced that they'd be facing each other, I think, this week on SmackDown. And they just brawled throughout the entire backstage. Jacob Fatu, Drew McIntyre, good match on our hands. It will happen this Friday, I believe, on SmackDown. So, and then Jacob Fatu, I don't know what's going on with him, but if he's going to challenge Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship, it feels fast, but it also feels overdue. He's that level of wrestler where you can do that. And I am looking forward to Jacob Fatu finally being in a world title picture because that guy is phenomenal to watch. He's great. Then following, there was a big rebrand and return on the show. Sami Zayn came out, hosted his U.S. Open Challenge against Shinsuke Nakamura. And I guess it was a return of multiple things because Shinsuke came out back as his like face form, didn't cheats, not crazy, came out, did the whole face entrance. It was the old theme song, which there was a report earlier in the week that WWE had been undergoing some major creative changes. And one of those things could be old theme songs. Shinsuke Nakamura was the first to bring his back. And then the Street Profits later in the show brought theirs back when they made their entrance. And if it's any indication, they say that Sheamus and Drew McIntyre are two guys that have been heavily pushing to get back their old music. Should that be the case, two phenomenal theme songs, two ones that fans have been calling for a while. I like that WWE is kind of, I guess, dialing it back, like not trying to do too much anymore with Def Rebel and a theme song, whatever it may be. A lot of people online have complained about creative in recent months. So I think a restart, or kind of like just a major shift or change could be good to re-engage some fans that maybe had lost interest otherwise. But anyways, to get back on topic, U.S. Open title match, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura revisiting an old rivalry from NXT. They put on a good match. They were having a good match, and then out of nowhere, it stops because of a DQ, and it ended in a no contest to a returning Tama Tonga. And if you recall last week on Friday Night SmackDown, Solo Sikoa rounded out his what I call glaze session of the MFT members, the new Bloodline members, whatever you want to call the group. And he said something is missing. And at some point, he's going to find it, and then they're going to be unstoppable. Well, it only took a week for him to refine it because Tama Tonga returned, interfered in that match, caused a no disqualification, or caused the DQ, I'm sorry. And that was that. And then the entire MFT came out and laid out both Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura. And they came out with like this face paint, this war paint. It actually makes them look a lot more intimidating. The only one not wearing it was Solo because he's the leader, but it actually makes them look a whole lot more intimidating than they were before. And I think there's actual good potential with this for the faction now. They have 5 members. They can wreak havoc on the entire SmackDown brand, whoever they so choose. And then later on in the night, the Wyatt Six faced the Street Profits. That's when they brought back the old song for the WWE Tag Team Championships. They ended up retaining it, and following the match, the MFTs squared off with the Wyatt Six in the ring in what I called it a freak off. No Diddy, of course. But it's just like you got these guys in masks and they all look like freaks, and then you got the freaking MFTs coming out with all the face paint, and they're staring each other down. It was pretty much a freak show in the ring. It looked very weird. It looked very WWE, if you will, because WWE is known for those wild characters. And You had about 10 of them in the ring at one time that were just unorthodox and borderline crazy. So I think that a feud between them actually has good potential, and it actually gets the MFTs into a tag title picture, I guess, which they have been not in since the group was formed officially as the MFTs. So a good rebrand for them, and I think it's going to work out heavily in the favor of that group, not only in the eyes of the creative, but in the eyes of the fan base as well. There's a temporary alliance following uh, the week before. Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vaquer teamed up to beat Julia and Kiana James. They were having a match the following day at Crown Jewel. It was only a temporary alliance, nothing major. Face off at the end of the match. That led into the Crown Jewel match a night later. The women's tag title match that has been teased for weeks seems to finally be coming because Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss have seemingly granted Zaruka's ask for a title match because they said they've earned it now after they picked up a win the week prior, I think, against the Secret Hervis, Chelsea Green, and Alba Fire. So they wanted them to earn it, prove they're worthy. I think they did that. So it seems that Zaruka, probably on a SmackDown episode, is going to get their rightful shot at Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss for the tag team championships. Of course, what else is new here? Passing blame. The Miz called himself the Spotlight. He cut a promo on Carmelo Hayes, why he turned on him. He said Carmelo turned on him, actually. It wasn't the other way around. He says Carmelo Hayes, he was giving him everything, and Carmelo Hayes was very unappreciative of it. So I don't know if this will be a little heel versus heel feud and Carmelo will keep that cocky, brash persona, or if it's a way to get Carmelo some sympathy and maybe turn him more face. But The Miz, Carmelo Hayes, going into a mini feud, breakup of Melo, don't Miz. And of course, he said Melo shot and he missed. So that's the common line everyone says about Carmelo Hayes. But The Miz claims that Melo was very unappreciative of the help and support that he had been giving him. And that's why he turned on him and Miz had to retaliate against Carmelo Hayes. Whatever. Now, in my notes here, the main event of SmackDown on Friday was a last man standing match between Damian Priest and Aleister Black. And the match was great. They put on a great show, and I have in my notes that it was a fire main event. But literally, because at the end of the match, they brawled into the crowd, they were up onto a box, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden, Zelina Vega, who's Aleister Black's wife, comes in. She's pleading, begging with Damian Priest not to continue this. He moves out of the way. Damian Priest goes to continue, and what does Aleister Black do? He shoots a fireball at Damian Priest. It was literal flame, like it was the illusion of flame. It shot out at his face. Whole crowd gasped. Priest got hit with the black mass, fell off the crate through a table. That was it. 10 count. Match over. Aleister Black wins and seemingly walked out with his wife. And if you look closer, if you didn't notice at the time, you see Zelina Vega kind of pass something backwards to Aleister Black that he takes. She most definitely passed him the fireball. And those two are seemingly aligned now, and they're going to move forward together, working together. Another real-life couple that has been paired together to work together on WWE TV. You had Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, husband-wife. You had CM Punk, AJ Lee, husband-wife. Now you have Zelina Vega and Aleister Black, husband-wife. So I guess they're leaning more into those real-life relationships coming into on-screen work, which is nice. But the match was great. The match was awesome. And the fact that they brought out a fireball at the end of the match was entirely unexpected, caught me way off guard. And I think it was very within Aleister Black's character to pull some stuff like that to win the match. So I thought it was perfectly done. It wrapped up an amazing week in wrestling in WWE. It wrapped up a great episode of SmackDown, and it led perfectly into what would be a great show in WWE Crown Jewel. But before we get there, WIUR Sports are back again on Wednesday night as women's soccer heads to Connecticut to play Sacred Heart in a crucial MAC showdown. You can get full MAC coverage at 6 p.m. on WIUR Sports on Mixlr. And also, Iona's MSC department is hosting a Women in Sports panel on Wednesday, October 22nd from 12:30 to 1:50 in Henry Lecture Hall. That's next week, not this week. That's next week. It's located in the La Penta School of Business. The panel will feature 5 talented individuals in the field of sports media, coming from brands like CBS Sports, Lookalike Productions, and the USTA. You can come and see how learn. You can come see and learn how women are shaping the sports media field and connect with professionals in the field on October 22nd. That's next week, next Wednesday, from 12:30 to 1:50 in Henry Lecture Hall in La Penta. Now, WWE Crown Jewel. I think, in my personal opinion, night and day show from WrestlePalooza, because WrestlePalooza was more focused, as we said on here. WrestlePalooza felt like it was more money driven. They brought back AJ Lee. They had Brock Lesnar have his first match back. I think it was more like ESPN debut. We got to draw. We got to draw. We got to draw. And you didn't really see that, like, the quality of match, because you had John Cena versus Brock Lesnar, which was nothing. It was a squash. Shouldn't have even been a match on the retirement tour. We already talked about that, so we don't have to go over that again. But it was followed up by Usos versus The Vision in like a no DQ match with LA Knight. It was fun. It was fine, but nothing to write home about. Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky was the best technical wrestling match on the card, as everybody knew it would be. Those two are phenomenal together. And AJ Lee, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Becky Lynch, they had their own fun. It was a good match, long match. Just any and everything that could happen, good spots. And it was fun. But again, nothing to write home about. Like, it's not an all-time classic, but it was a fun match. And then Cody versus Drew was fine, but it was extremely underwhelming in what happened. So that show was given like a C at most by a large majority of the fan base. Crown Jewel, on the other hand, was great. I loved Crown Jewel. I loved everything about watching it. We opened with Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns in an Australian street fight, and that was Bronson Reed's defining moment. It was his big, big win, the one he needed, the one on this show that we said he needed to get. Roman Reigns does not need that win, and it would do so much for Bronson Reed's character if he's able to knock off somebody of the caliber of Roman Reigns, who in a one-on-one match had only been pinned by Cody Rhodes in years. And Bronson Reed did exactly that. He picked up his huge win over Roman Reigns, and it was not without some controversy, of course. Braun Breaker got involved, and then Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso got involved, even though Roman didn't want them to. And Jey accidentally ended up spearing Roman through a table. Bronson took advantage, hit a tsunami, pinned Roman 1, 2, 3. Biggest win of his career. And Roman was a little distraught after this. You saw more tension between the OG bloodline, as there already has been, because Roman Reigns said that people, quote, think he can't do anything himself anymore. And he wanted to do this one on his own and prove that he can do it, even though Roman Reigns literally just won multiple matches by himself. He beat Bronson Reed a month ago by himself. So it was really like he didn't, but in his mind, the fans think that he can't do anything by himself, which is why he didn't want the Usos there. They interfered. They actually cost him, ended up having him to lose, and Roman doesn't want to see him for a while. Doesn't want to see him till Christmas, he said. And then Jey ended up walking out on Jimmy right after and all mad, saying maybe we should focus on ourselves too. That led into Monday Night Raw, but a whole lot of tension there. Bronson Reed was the winner, was the right winner. He's the guy who needed the win. And I was very happy with that match. It was fun, and I was happy with the booking decision to put Bronson Reed over. Second match on the card was the Women's Crown Jewel Championship match between Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vaquer. And ultimately, it's La Primera. She became the standard in the women's division. She picked up a huge win over Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton, coming into the match unbeaten on the year, claimed the championship the first episode of the year of WWE programming in general on SmackDown. Cashed in on Nia Jax. This has been the year of Tiffany Stratton. And on this show, I kind of figured they were going to continue with that narrative and have Tiffany Stratton pick up herself a very nice win against Stephanie Vaquer, win the Crown Jewel Championship, still undefeated, and it would make that moment that she lost the title a little bit bigger. But I think I said that she didn't really need that win, and Stephanie Vaquer could benefit a whole lot more from that win. So it was very refreshing and very nice to see that WWE is committed to building themselves a superstar with Stephanie Vaquer. She and Io Sky are the best two wrestlers on the roster for women, at least. They're two of the best in general overall on the roster, arguably the two best. They're just both phenomenal to watch. But Big win for Stephanie Vaquer. She is the 2025 Women's Crown Jewel champion. Handed Tiffany Stratton her first loss of the calendar year. Now, there was a bit of a segment leading into the Seth Rollins match between the Vision backstage and Paul Heyman. The Brawns were instructed not to help Seth Rollins should he beg for that help. And you kind of saw a little bit of tension starting to build, which obviously happens with factions throughout time. They start to build tension. And that was like the little break. You saw Braun Breaker. He was kind of like, he didn't really know like what to do. He's starting to doubt Seth Rollins. Like, wait, what if he needs our help? Don't help him. Like Braun Breaker already like, he's in that mindset that like Seth Rollins is going to need help and he's going to have to do it. He's just worried about Seth Rollins in general and worried about what happens if Seth Rollins loses to Cody Rhodes, therefore proving that he is not the man and not the best suited to go for the future. Then I don't want to spend too much time on it because obviously I'm limited, but match of the tour, John Cena versus AJ Styles was my favorite match of that entire card. They put on a finisher fest. It was perfect. All the tributes, the wrestling itself, the kickouts, the length, everything about that match was perfect. You saw John Cena hit like the skull crushing finale, the accolade, sweet chin music from AJ Styles. He pulled a few moves out from TNA that he used to do, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe. You saw John Cena tribute Bray Wyatt in a great moment with the Sister Abigail. He hit the RKO, the DDT. It was everything. Ended the match with a pile driver. It was purely exactly what you'd want that match to be. They both put on a hell of a show, and it was definitely the best match of the tour. I don't think it's going to get topped by anything John Cena has going forward, which apparently might be The Rock. Said he wants to do it. John Cena, I think, would welcome that. So not to get into that, we'll talk about that soon. Rio reigned supreme down under against the Kabuki Warriors. You saw Io Sky and Rhea Ripley pick up a tag win in Rhea's home country against Asuka and Kairi Sane. It was a back and forth tag match. Again, really good quality. And Io, rightfully so, ended up getting the pinfall on Kairi to kind of exact her revenge on that unit a little bit. It was a good win to pick up for Io. I think that her getting the pinfall was the right call. And Rhea ended up getting a win in her home country, which, of course, is always nice. And finally, we closed with the Men's Crown Jewel Championship match. And the vision was finally clear at the end of the night. Seth Rollins defeated Cody Rhodes with the help of the watch that Cody gave him at WrestleMania 40 to become the Men's Crown Jewel Champion. The referee got knocked off his feet. Cody Rhodes got punched in the face by Seth Rollins with the watch. Seth Rollins took advantage, stomp, mid-rope stomp. Done deal. First win over Cody Rhodes in his career, including house shows. He's never beaten him. That was a win that Seth Rollins needed to get. He was the right winner to go along with his gimmick. And Cody Rhodes, having won Crown Jewel already last year and won in the main event of WrestleMania, dethroned Roman Reigns to become the WWE champion and the longest title reign in modern history. He just absolutely did not need it. Cody Rhodes was fine. He's going to be fine without that win. Seth Rollins would have been fine without that win too, but it does a whole lot more for his character if he picks up that win to get in his own mind. He overcomes that Cody Rhodes hurdle and proves to himself that he is the guy to lead the company into the future. And not only himself, but prove to his clique, prove to the Vision, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Paul Heyman that he is the guy they can trust to lead this company into the future. That was Crown Jewel. The matches were stupendous. The matches were great. The storylines advanced properly as they should. And I think that WWE saw the criticism maybe from WrestlePalooza, and they went all in on the quality of the product this match. Because if we go down, Bronson Reed, Roman Reigns, good match, fun match. Stephanie versus Tiffany, great match. Match of the tour, John Cena and AJ Styles, most fun I've ever had watching a wrestling match in a long time. Rhea and Io versus the Kabuki Warriors, very high quality match, very well done. Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, they had Cody Rhodes bust out of Crossroads from the top rope. I don't think I've ever seen him do that. That was a great match, although you knew that was going to be a great match because they've done it in the past. But all the matches were good. All the matches were fun to watch. I think that they definitely put emphasis on the product this time, maybe not just drawing eyes and getting the money. They focused on the quality of the product, and it really paid off because that show was great to watch. I really enjoyed myself. Now moving on to WWE Monday Night Raw in Perth, or if you're over here in the United States like I am, WWE Monday Morning Perth. Monday Morning Raw, because obviously in Australia, these events go off at 8 in the morning. So, first to start the IC title picture, there was a match between Dominic Mysterio and Penta, and Dominic again, ever so clever, Eddie Guerrero like, retained the Intercontinental Championship by using a hammer. He took the timekeeper's hammer that he used to ring the bell, brought it in the ring. He hit Penta in the knee to set up a 619, and then put the hammer in the boot to hit him with the 619. It was a nice little it's again, that's something that I don't remember ever seeing. So I think it was a very smart way to put Dominic over. And I mean, stuff doesn't really get any better for him because he now has to face Rusev next Monday for the Intercontinental Championship. And he got by Rusev once. I don't know if he's going to get by Rusev again. So Dominic versus Penta might have been Dominic's final defense of the Intercontinental Championship. Because the way he beat Rusev the first time, I can understand. But I don't know if you can come up with so many ways that Dominic is going to beat a guy like Rusev. Because even if you just look at them physically, Dominic Mysterio is not somebody that should be beating Rusev in a clean wrestling match. So Dominic versus Rusev, I think, and I want to go out on a limb and say that we're going to be sitting back here at 1 p.m. next Tuesday. Tune in. We're going to be sitting back here talking about Monday Night Raw and your new Intercontinental Champion, Rusev. The Kabuki Warriors versus Rio feud continued on Monday Night Raw. Asuka again slapped the taste out of Kairi's mouth for causing her dishonor by losing, because obviously Kairi took the pin, and put her in a match against Rhea Ripley, although Kairi was banged up, to regain the honor. That match happens. Rhea Ripley in Australia is virtually unbeatable. She's virtually unbeatable. She's usually unbeatable anyways. So throw her in her home country. She's literally Super Saiyan. She will not lose. Rhea beat Kairi. It was a very hard-fought match, and it was actually a very good match. It went on for a while, and they could have kept going on. I was really enjoying myself. But Io Sky helped her ringside against Asuka. She picked up the win, but then the Kabuki Warriors ended up standing tall at the end of the segment, laying out both Io and Rhea. So that feud is ongoing. Not sure which direction they're going to take it now. Crazy Bailey continued. Lyra and Bailey had a tag match and picked up a win over the Judgment Day, that being Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez, after Lyra again literally just slapped the Crazy back into Bailey and slapped her in the face with the intensity. She went up, stepped up her game, picked up the pinfall. So that pairing is working well together. And I think it's only a matter of time before Bailey completely snaps on Lyra again and those two feud with each other, because this crazy character of Bailey, she's literally in and out of just good, bad, crazy, quiet, whatever the hell's going on. But the Crazy Bailey persona, I think, is actually working for her. And I think it was something that was well needed after her face run, because her character kind of lacked depth. Like, she didn't really do much other than just be your typical face and go out and help people and try this, that. But this gives her some depth, this split personality type character. And I think it's working really well, and she's doing a great job with it. The World Tag titles finally are being defended again. AJ Styles and Dragon Lee are going to face Judgment Day for the World Tag titles next week on Raw. Thank goodness. Thank you, Dom, for giving Adam Pearce and AJ Styles the idea for that. I'm sure Finn Balor and JD were thrilled about it. But Women's World Championship picture, obviously, Stephanie Vaquer, new Women's Crown Jewel champion. Where does it go from here? Who's our first challenger on Raw? It was actually Roxanne Perez, the young Roxanne Perez, the phenomenal, the great Roxanne Perez, that stepped to Stephanie Vaquer during an interview promo and said that she should actually be Women's World Champion now and Crown Jewel champion, because she should have been in that match against Stephanie instead of Io. And she would have obviously, in her mind, beaten Stephanie and claimed the championship, and then beat Stephanie Stratton and claimed Crown Jewel championship. So it was kind of teased maybe a month or two ago that Roxanne Perez wants to get in the world title picture. She stepped up to Stephanie Vaquer, says she should be champion. Stephanie gives her the opportunity. I think they're facing on Raw next week, non-title match, which means I think there's actually an open door for Roxanne to pick up a big win and fight for the world title. I guess we'll see how that goes. Main event was a World Heavyweight Championship #1 contenders match. CM Punk faced LA Knight, who faced Jey Uso, to claim the #1 contendership in the World Heavyweight Championship picture against Seth Rollins. Back and forth match. Every guy got their steps in. They got their moments, but it was ultimately CM Punk that picked up the big win. LA Knight hit Punk with a BFT, threw Jey out of the ring, and Jey pulled LA Knight off the cover. Went back in the ring. Jay got caught. GTS. CM Punk picks up the big win. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship is seemingly coming soon, except there was one major turn that this entire programming took right at the end, and I don't think anybody expected it. One of my friends, I was asleep. I had class. I didn't watch live, but one of my friends hit me up and he was freaking out about it. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they just did this. I can't believe what I just watched. I'm thinking, like, what the hell is this guy talking about? What could happen at this show? I go on to watch it later, avoided spoilers, thankfully. But freaking the Vision just completely imploded. They imploded on Monday Night Raw. It's only been 5 months. They came out, they opened the show. Obviously, this whole storyline was going on throughout the episode. Seth Rollins, he gave praise to everybody. He praised Braun Breaker coming into his own, praised Bronson Reed coming into his own. He praised Paul Heyman, and he especially gave himself a lot of credit. And in his promo, they were kind of building to it throughout the episode now that you watch. But Seth Rollins was saying, it's me. I'm doing this. I'm the best. I don't need these guys. I brought them under my wing, but I don't need them. I don't need Braun Breaker. I don't need Paul Heyman. I don't need Bronson Reed. That clearly didn't rub them the right way. So there was some tension. That was teased again at Crown Jewel. Seth also said these last 6 months have been the best of his life, watching the Vision come into what they are. He said he was on cloud nine, and there's nobody that can knock him off. Soon to find out that wasn't exactly the case. They laid out the field after the main event. They put Punk down, Jay down, and LA Knight down. And as the trademark, the blatant trademark comes up, the executive rights, all copyright, yada, yada, yada. As the closing credits roll, Braun Breaker comes out of left field and spears Seth Rollins, turns on him, and follows by telling Bronson Reed, you're either with me or against me, you choose. Bronson Reed followed Braun Breaker, hit a tsunami on Seth. Paul Heyman was distraught, had no idea what was going on, and Braun told him the same thing. And obviously, Paul Heyman, whether he was faking it or not, he has no choice because those guys can literally whoop his behind. So he raised both their hands. They stood over Seth Rollins to close the show. And there's a few theories going around as to why this happened, because you knew obviously all factions implode at some point, but it was a matter of when. They've only been together for 5 months. They were likely going to be together for a year, maybe plus in everybody's mind before the implode finally happened. And there's a few theories. Somebody saw Seth Rollins in a sling and posted pictures of it following Crown Jewel before Monday Night Raw. The report is that Seth Rollins injured his shoulder on the wild coast-to-coast spot he did with Cody Rhodes. He landed right on it. And it seemed like he hurt himself during that spot and that he needs like some surgery or he has to miss time because of a left shoulder injury. And that's why they did the vision turn prematurely. At this point, it seems like the viable option, but it also seems like the unrealistic option because Seth Rollins literally faked a knee injury for a month back in the summer to make his grand return and cash in on CM Punk. He faked an injury before for storyline. I don't know if he's doing it again with this turn, if they're faking an injury, if they're faking a turn, whatever it may be. Let's say Seth Rollins is actually injured. He vacates the title. Where does this storyline go? Does CM Punk now face Braun Breaker for the championship, who took out the champion and feels that he's the guy and he should be getting the title shot? I don't know. Another theory is that this is all a ploy by Seth because obviously he faked an injury to get at Punk once before. Punk is now the number one contender for the title. Maybe CM Punk is getting fooled again. Maybe Seth Rollins staged this whole turn, played into the nothing can knock me off my rocker right now, just to fake a turn, make Punk think that they've turned against him. And then ultimately they come back together when they face and they get CM Punk again in a ploy. And it was all a plan for Seth Rollins to retain his championship. Would be a master plan in WWE storylining, but I think that that is the worst possible thing they would do. And I think they lose a lot of people that way because the fake injury to cash in was already enough. It doesn't need to happen again. I think it was perfect how it was. Doing another like fake thing is just like, oh, we faked you out once, we faked you out again. Ha ha. I think it would actually lose a lot of fans more than gain them. So I'm hoping that's not the option, but obviously you can never be too careful. It could be an option. Option 3 is that maybe this was always the plan, whatever, but I think that it actually works out better if it's a full turn because Braun Breaker's character is very impulsive. He just acts on how he feels, and you obviously see that every week that he goes out and does things. He just kind of does whatever he wants. So I think Braun Breaker, if he gets impulsively this feeling that like Seth Rollins is kind of dissing me, he's saying he doesn't need me, and that makes me expendable, that he just acts on it right away, very quickly, 5 months in, and completely turns on him and kind of believes like, who are you to say that I'm not valuable to you? Like I'm Braun Breaker, I'm the big dog. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that that also could be in play. I think it's the most like likely option, and I hope it's the one they roll with because Braun Breaker, it just fits his character to do something like that. And then obviously the way Seth Rollins was talking about Paul Heyman and talking about Bronson Reed earlier in the night, it just makes sense that they would turn on him because he sees them as expendable and not all that important to them. That he's kind of just they're kind of just his proteges, and like uh they're not they're not necessities for him. I don't know where this leaves the state of Monday Night Raw. I don't know where it leaves the state of the Vision, the state of the World Heavyweight Championship, the state of Seth Rollins himself, the state of Roman Reigns even, because where does it go with War Games? Does War Games now become the Vision with other people against Seth Rollins and a group of people? They can't team up Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. They hate each other. Maybe they do a one-night alliance. I don't know, but it opens up a lot of possibilities moving into Survivor Series season, and we will just have to see how it plays out. Thank you very much for tuning in. This was a great week. I'm looking forward to another great week, another great show. And if you want to see more of me talking about this past weekend's UFC card, UFC Rio, Charles Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot, tune in at 5 o'clock to Octagon Antics with me and Luca Baiani. I'll see you then.